First, the headlines. Court blocks deployment of police officers to Haiti. Health Ministry says Israeli troops still searching complex hospital. Rescuers to drill deeper to rescue trapped workers. David Cameron visits Odessa, pledge UK support. Treasury imposed fresh sanctions against Russia. Police to investigate burial site on remote island. And now to the rest of our stories. Court blocks deployment. Kenya's High Court on Thursday extended orders blocking the deployment of police officers to Haiti, even as Parliament approved a government request to send 1,000 officers to the Caribbean nation to help deal with gang violence. High Court Judge Chacha Witwa said he would issue a ruling on January 26, effectively delaying the sending of security officers to Haiti, where they are slated to lead a multinational force backed by the UN Security Council. The planned deployment was first blocked by the High Court in Nairobi in October. Whatever decision is reached by the High Court in January may be appealed, meaning there could be a protracted battle over sending the troops to Haiti. The court decision came hours after Kenya's parliament passed a motion allowing the deployment of the security officers. Polling stations closed and the counting of votes began Thursday in Madagascar in a presidential election that was boycotted by the majority of candidates following weeks of unrest and court battles. A low voter turnout marked the election as many people appeared to heed a call by a collective of 10 candidates to stay away from voting booths. Civil society groups had called for a postponement of the election. The country's election management body, Seni, is expected to announced late Thursday the first nationwide trend based on the counting of 60% of the votes cast in major cities before proclaiming the provisional consolidated results between November 24th and November 25th. It will then be up to the country's High Constitutional Court to proclaim the official results of the election at the beginning of December. A runoff has been scheduled for December 20th if none of the candidates attain more than 50% from Thursday's vote. But the opposition has already said it doesn't recognize this election. The majority of Malagasy people expressed themselves through the fact that they stayed home, said Harry Rajamanapyanina, a former president speaking on behalf of the country. Palpable at some polling stations where some people refused to talk to journalists. At one polling station, people warned each other against making comments after being approached by a journalist. The South African Health Department says the reduced cost of a new anti-HIV injection is still 3 times more than it can afford to pay. The UK-based drug company VIV Healthcare has lowered the price from 729 rand per shot to between 540 and 570 rand. The medication taken every 8 weeks essentially eliminates someone's chances of contracting HIV through sex. It contains an antiretroviral drug, cabotegravir, that is released over a 2-month period. The treatment is called Cabla or cabotegravir. With more than 13% of the South African population infected with HIV, the country has 64,200 people in the country were infected with the virus in 2022. The non-profit price of Cabla is much cheaper than in the US, where it costs about $3,700 for a shot, but it is still 4 times what South Africa's health department pays. For Cabla to be cost-effective to the South African government, the price would need to be within a reasonable range of oral PrEP, which is 129 rand for a 2-month supply. We can't afford to pay double or thrice the price, especially not within the context of the budget cuts our department has faced, said the National Health Department's Chief Director of Procurement, Khadija Jamaluddin. What's more, said Jamaluddin, is that VV's non-profits price doesn't include distribution costs in Africa and also funds oral PRP in several African countries. Internet and telephone services collapsed across the Gaza Strip on Thursday for lack of fuel. The main Palestinian provider said bringing up as the food supply a day after stumbling into Gaza's largest hospital, Israeli troops continued searching the complex. Gaza's health ministry said the troops searched underground levels of the hospital Thursday and detained techniques against humanity ahead Damascus suburbs. You are watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. Welcome back. This is the international news on Atlantic Television Network. Now to the rest of our stories. Rescuers drilled deeper into the rubble of a collapsed road tunnel in northern India on Friday to fix wide pipes for 40 workers trapped underground for a 6th day to crawl to their freedom. Drilling with the new machine started on Thursday and has covered a stretch of 24 meters so far, Devrendra Patwal, a disaster management official, said. It may require up to 60 meters to the warship that serves as an outpost in the South China Sea. The Philippines BRB Sierra Madre at second Thomas Shoal, a submerged reef in the Spratly Islands in 1999 to guard against expansion by China. And the ship has become a growing flashpoint in the fierce disputed water. Beijing has demanded the warship's removal and over recent months has repeatedly tried to block Philippines boats from delivering supplies to vessels with a military-grade laser and performing what Manila has condemned as dangerous maneuvers. It claims almost the entire South China Sea, despite the tribunal finding this to have no legal basis. China wants to use its superior strength. In short, they want to bully small countries into submission. And it is very important for the international community to know that Colonel Medel Aguila, a spokesperson for the armed forces of the Philippines, told the press. The Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. had been clear that the BRB Sierra Madre would not be towed away, Aguila said. The BRB Sierra Madre will remain there and will always be manned by our Navy personnel. Therefore, you can expect that the rotation and resupply missions will also continue, in spite of the obstruction that China is doing. The majority of resupply missions had been completed despite attempts by Chinese Coast Guard and Chinese maritime militia to interfere, he said. However, he said such incidents were endangering lives. China has previously said that its Coast Guard has acted in a professional and restrained manner in blocking Philippine boats from reaching the Sierra Madre and in accordance with the law. The two countries' stances on the war between Israel and Hamas are poles apart. Erdogan is due to meet Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Germany's largely ceremonial president Frank-Walter Steinmeier. Scholz invited Erdogan to visit in May following his re-election. Turkey is viewed as an awkward but essential partner in Germany, which is home to more than 3 million people with Turkish roots. It is a NATO ally that is also important in efforts to control the flow of refugees and migrants to Europe, but there have been tensions in recent years over a variety of issues. Germany is a staunch ally of Israel and has opposed calls for a ceasefire while pushing for aid to civilians in Gaza, advocating humanitarian pauses, and seeking to keep open channels of communications with other countries in the region to prevent the conflict from spreading. Erdogan has taken an increasingly strident stance against Israel. On Wednesday, he called it a terrorist state intent on destroying Gaza along with all of its residents. He described Hamas militants as resistant fighters trying to protect their land and people. Those and similar comments have appalled politicians across the spectrum in Germany. Asked earlier this week about Erdogan's comments, Scholz didn't mention the Turkish leader by name, but said the accusations that are being made there against Israel are absurd. On Wednesday, Scholz told Parliament that his talks with Erdogan will include a discussion of different views in this question. It is very important that there is clarity and that we make our own position very clear. Israel recalled its diplomats from Turkey last month after Erdogan accused Israel of committing war crimes. Turkey also recorded its ambassador from Israel. David Cameron travelled Thursday to the Ukrainian port of Odessa in his first overseas trip, Britain's new foreign minister, and pledged that the UK would continue providing military support until Ukraine is victorious in its war with Russia. Cameron, a former prime minister who returned to government in a surprise appointment Monday in a cabinet shuffle, said he wanted to make Ukraine his first diplomatic destination and met Wednesday with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. I admire the strength and determination of the Ukrainian people, he told Zelensky in a video posted by the president. Cameron said the UK would continue to provide moral, economic, and diplomatic support, but above all, the military support that you need, not just this year and next year, but however how long it takes. The two-day visit came as Ukraine faces several challenges on and off the battlefield. Zelensky has struggled to capture the world's attention as focus has shifted to the Middle East and Israel's war with Hamas. Additional U.S. funding for Ukraine is jeopardized by political fights in Washington, and the European Union says it can't provide all the munitions it promised. Meanwhile, Ukraine's counteroffensive has led to only incremental gains, and the ground war appears bogged down in a stalemate as winter arrives. Western officials, speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss intelligence, said Thursday that the land war was likely to remain essentially stuck for the foreseeable future. One official said neither side was capable of mounting a decisive offense, and Kyiv's counteroffensive has not changed Russian President Vladimir Putin's aim to control Ukraine. Zelensky thanked Cameron for visiting and told him that the divided focus in the world does not help his cause. A Russian soldier recently returned from fighting in Ukraine went to teach school children about Russia's military campaign there before later beating up his neighbors, Russian news reported on its Telegram channel. It is the latest report of a fighter from Ukraine returning to commit acts of violence in Russia. The man from Saratov region in southern Russia had returned from Ukraine on November 13 to his hometown of Atkask and visited a school the next day to teach children about the war. Ostorozno Novosti said later that evening, an outrageously cruel and senseless incident occurred as a married couple were brutally beaten in the courtyard of their home. The head of the local district, Victor Yelling, wrote on his Telegram channel. Yelling confirmed that the man detained was a soldier. The soldier, named by Ostorno Novosti as Dmitry Kuryunkin, had visited the school to take part in a curriculum called Important Conversations. It was introduced by Russia's education ministry after the invasion of Ukraine to ensure children to receive a patriotic education. A Russian court on Thursday convicted an artist and a musician for swapping supermarket price tags with anti-war messages, sentencing her to 7 years in prison in the latest crackdown on free speech. Sasha Kochilenko was arrested in her native St. Petersburg in April 2022 and charged with spreading false information about the military after replacing tiny price tags with ones that decried Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Russian army bombed an art school in Mariupol. Some 400 people were hiding in it from the shelling. One read, another said Russian conscripts are being sent to Ukraine. Lives of our children are the price. The supermarket who found the slogans reported them to authorities. Kochilenko's arrest came about a month after authorities adopted a law effectively criminalizing any public expression about the war that deviates from the official Kremlin line. The legislation has been used in the widespread actions